Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this special business meeting of Washington County Public Schools. We have all board members present along with the student board members, so we do have a quorum. We'll get the meeting started with the pledge to the flag and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We will go on and approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Beachley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Do we have any discussion? Here, no, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? Unanimous vote with the student member concurring. And so the lone action item on our agenda here is the FY 2027 General Fund Operating Budget, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Savine.
Thank you, President Evans, members of the board. As you're well aware, over the last month, you've been busy discussing the FY 27 budget. Today, I have asked staff to present two options for the board's consideration to increase the amount of funds for the salary resource pool to enhance staff wages. At this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Prue, Mr. Sisler, and Mr. Shives.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. Good afternoon, board members. I think as we begin this discussion, I want to take us back a month, starting with the April 7th work session. During that time, staff recognized consensus amongst the board members to reduce summer school funding, which resulted in a savings of $423,000. It returns our summer school programming to FY25 levels. We did save some transportation funding to support COP and Title I summer school programs that will continue to operate. The board also reached consensus on reducing small computer equipment by $400,000. This reduces funds available for Chromebook replacements, but the board does have some remaining connectivity grant funds, what we call our ECF funds, to support in the short term, to support that cycle. And consensus was reached for the reallocation of $634,000 to the salary resource pool and $189,000 for two special ed case managers. To be clear, you said you wanted money to the resource pool and you wanted additional case managers. We did the math. So just for what it's worth, in case anyone's going back and fact checking that meeting, that's where the math laid out. We backed in. We started with what's the funding we need for the two case managers, and then backed the rest into the salary resource pool. Additionally, as Dr. Savine mentioned, we've been charged with coming up with some additional options. We put these into two buckets for you, kind of an option one, option two cycle. Option one reduces the bus replacement cycle funding by $400,000. So this leaves the funding cycle for FY27 at the same level as it was in FY26. The draft budget before you increases that amount by $400,000, so it kind of reduces that additional allocation. Option one also includes a $500,000 reduction for the Academy of Blended Learning Education program. This essentially closes the elementary virtual learning program, and it would be 6.25 FTE teachers that would be reallocated to other positions within the school system. And all of this money, $900,000 in total, would be reverted to the salary resource pool. Under option two, we would reconsider the special education managers that was reached on consensus at the April 7th work session and eliminate those positions. We've also done some analysis on our Chromebook plan. You're going to talk more about our Chromebook plan and how they're used, how they're distributed through the system in the work session immediately following this meeting. But we felt that we could probably carve out an additional $330,000 from that line item, which would make a reduction in total of $730,000 from what is in the FY26 budget. And that would leave you $519,000 in total from option 2 that could be transitioned to the salary resource pool. And staff are happy to accept any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Prude. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to accept the Board of Education's fiscal year 2027 general fund operating budget.
Thank you, Mr. Gesser. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion?
So what are we taking? Which one? One or two? Wasn't,
Oh, I guess you didn't say that. Well, I think,
The motion.
We have to accept it before we amend it.
yeah, so,
What don't we, what we
For-
have,
For clarity, you have a motion on the table from the last business meeting. So Mr. Gesford's motion affirms that that motion is there. Now you can amend the budget. Before you vote on that motion, you'll make amendments to the budget, deciding on these options and what you would want to take forward, and then you come back to the original motion.
that's what I thought.
So into the discussion, I guess I'll go ahead and say that I'm for option number 2.
okay. Anyone else?
I would like to see us do both options. And since OPEB our pool has over $139 million in it, they got over $10 million in investments last year alone. I think we could take both options and make up the rest of the money from our OPEB.
Okay.
The rest of what money?
can
To
we?
to give more of a raise to our employees,
To put into salary resource.
put into the salary resource pool. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Jeff, what is the cost of a 1% raise for teachers?
Charlie, can you move your mic closer?
Jeff? What's the cost of a 1% increase for teachers?
1.45 million.
So I was looking at adding an option 3 or 4. Option 3 would pick up the budget reductions, the bus replacement, and move it over to option 2, which would give us that 900,000 in resource pool, and keeping the ABLE program, or combining both options, which was just suggested as an option 4, which would give us that 1.4, or pretty close. And then that would enable us to give at least another % raise. I will say I'm not necessarily for getting rid of the ABLE program. I think as we discussed the one meeting, we've only been doing it for a year, 2 years, and I think it would be nice to see longer term. And so if you take that off the table, can we come up with another 500,000 from somewhere else in the budget, would be my question.
I have a couple questions about the bus replacement. So with the 400,000, how many buses is that?
How much does the 400,000 pay for?
Yeah, get us the buses.
Not quite 3 buses. A traditional 72-passenger bus without AC and lift that we would buy for just general ed runs is running right now about 160,000 per vehicle.
So for me, I'm kind of more so thinking long-term, and I know, isn't it by 2030 we have to switch to electric? So how much would one of those buses cost?
There are different pricing models, often for the electric buses, but you should assume that they're likely 3 times as many, 3 times as much.
So for me, that's why I don't want to change this, because last year we took money from this, and this would be kind of catching us up to what we took out last year, or not quite.
You'd still be short. I think we reduced about $1 million last year.
Yeah, I think it would still leave you 600,000 short in terms of what we've done previously.
Yeah, so just my preference, I would not like to take money from that because in the long run, it's going to hurt us way worse.
Agreed. I was actually going to say the same thing, Ashley. I would actually be okay combining option 1 and 2, but leaving the bus replacement cycle. So you would take Able and add it, removing Able to option 2, and that would get us, 1,019. Sorry, I think that was bad math. 5. Yes, 1 million.
Million
1
19.
million, yes. Do we need to go through and make a motion for each amendment and approve it or vote on it, I mean?
Yeah.
Since we have so many on the table?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're just having discussion.
Yeah.
Is there any, does anyone else, I think, so that we're not being redundant, does someone have a motion, an amendment they'd like to make to the motion now, so we can discuss that and take certain things on and off the table?
Should we start with the easy one? It sounds like we definitely have enough for number 2.
Well, I mean, like I said, that's up to you guys. What does the rest of the board want? Do we have the,
I can make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay. So I move that we take option 2, but add the bus replacement cycle money in option 2. Is that what we talked, okay? Does that sound right?
The opposite, for me at least, I don't know.
Oh, I thought you wanted the buses.
Oh, no, I want to keep the bus money, but Able, I'm
Right,
quite-
I think that's what I said.
Oh, okay, sorry.
you said buses, so Abel, you want to?
Yes.
You want to, so to be clear, the motion that you're making is to amend the motion so that we adopt option 2 and add the reduction of Able savings of $500,000 to option 2.
Correct.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion?
I want to make sure at the end of the day, with whatever we're approving, that we're able to at least give another 1%. And under that scenario, unless somebody can commit to finding 400,000, I would not be able to vote for the budget today.
So does anyone else have any discussion? I'm going to actually pass out stuff that we've already received as board members, stuff that's already been, I don't think I have enough for you, sorry, but, yeah. So stuff that we've already discussed, stuff that's public information. If you go and look at that, you can see where the money is. It is extremely alarming when we look at this, that if you look at that first page, there is $14 million in new revenue. 10 million of it is going to staff and staff compensation and benefits. That's 70% of the money going already to the teachers. We spent last year, in all this stuff is in there, we spent last year $70 million on insurance claims. We paid, what is it, $59 million in I think that was our portion of it. And when you look at this, we could go and cut, sure, we can go and cut whatever we want right now, but next year, when we are going to go back and try to give more money, because even 2% is not going to be enough to appease anyone either. So we could go back, do the 2%, still not make anyone happy. And then next year, we're in the same exact boat. Now we even have less to cut. And quite frankly, the stuff that we're talking about cutting is extremely needed. The OPEB liability, we were funding that $5 million per year to keep it solvent, to keep it up to pace with what the expectation is. $5 million. We're only doing, what is it, 1.5 now?
Yeah, 1.6.
So we're looking at these numbers. We've already made some seriously drastic cuts. And I want to give a raise as much as everyone else does. Everyone does. The fact of the matter is the county's got significant debt, right? If you look at one of those pages, it shows that we're receiving $15 million more next year than we did last year, right? The county taxpayer is certainly paying their fair share. And it's extremely alarming to me that we're going down this fiscal cliff. We're making all these cuts. When we start going and making another offer for another 3% increase next year, where's the money going to come from? Where does it come from?
Can
That's
I-
my question.
Can
So
I-
that was a rhetorical question. So when we're making this discussion, I'm just begging each and every one of my fellow board members to do the right thing. I understand that the popular thing, rarely if ever, is the right thing. I'm begging us to go and do the right thing and keep this budget balanced for the future. We're going to balance it right now, no matter what we do. But what are we going to do in the future? Where's the money going to come from? And that's what I'm asking my fellow board members to think about.
The one-
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the one thing I wanted to say was, we had discussed earlier about asking the county commissioners to fund our school resource officers. They have in their fund balance, in their general fund balance, not over $90 million.
Which is less than how much they have in debt.
Well, they have more in their CIP, they have, if you go down the line. But I'm just saying,
And then they have to
So-
pay back loans for the pension, which is what would happen if we take it out of OPEB. You can't take money away that you promised to someone already.
but we're in a pool that has over $30 million. They made $10 million on investments last year.
Which still keeps it at what, about 50% funded, not even fully funded?
You just can't spend
So-
pension money.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I just want to make it, I want to make it clear that this ain't for me, sorry, I used the word ain't.
In the dictionary.
Somebody will call me out for that. This isn't about a popular decision for me. This is about doing the right thing. That's how I feel about it, and I feel strongly about it. I don't mind the idea of, I just, I agree. The commissioners used to fund, when I was serving, 47% of our budget. And that's now down to 37%, or maybe I have it switched, I don't know.
You're about right.
What I've said a couple times is going to the commissioners and saying, look, this is what we've done. This is where it's been cut. Can you give us another 1%? I don't even know, to be honest with you, maybe Jeff could figure that out real quick, what 1% additional would mean to us.
So they are
About
currently
1.4
giving
million.
us, this year's allocation is 120?
1.1, 1.4 million.
It'd be 1.25 million. They're giving us this year 125 million is the requirement, so 1% would be 1.25 million.
So if we went to them and we said, hey, all we're asking for is a 1% increase in what you're currently giving us, we wouldn't have to cut any of this stuff. And so saying that, I'm not trying to put it all on the commissioners. I still also go back to, I think that if we really press some numbers, that we could come up with that remaining amount. I would be for taking the ABLE program and moving it over to 2, as long as I could be assured that we could come up with that other 400,000.
Let's look at economics. If you're spending your own money on you, you're pretty stingy. and you want to have a balanced checkbook. If you're spending it on your family, you probably are a lot more generous. But if you're spending other people's money, it's just numbers on a page. Let me finish, Charlie. Let me finish. Spending money that we don't have is wrong. And so I'm with Daryl, do the next right thing. When you look at the historical salaries of teachers, most of whom have a passion for their classroom, and we know that, God willing, when Blueprint is gone, that really narrow part of the pool won't get most of the money. But the bottom line is you can't spend money you don't have. And if you have a place in this budget that you can cut right now, please let me know.
Out of respect, I built 3 businesses in this county, and all of them did quite well. It's not my job to find that other $1 million or 400,000, whatever that is. That's what Jeff gets paid to do. And I'm telling you where I'm at, that's all.
I also was a business owner, so I know what you're talking about. But as president and CEO of the company, I made sure that I worked with the COO.
Do we have any more discussion on the amendment in place?
You want to repeat
On
them?
the-
Can you repeat them?
So the amended motion is to adopt option 2 and to remove ABLE and add the savings from ABLE along with option 2 into the salary resource pool. Do I have that right, Linda?
And keep the bus replacement. Was that? Yes, we wanted to keep the bus replacement in there.
So did we need a second on that motion? I know we,
I think
Did
you
we-
did give the second.
oh, I did. All
Yeah.
right, sorry. And we had discussion, yes.
So it's option 2, and you're saying add the reduction of ABLE.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
That's it. That's the one, that's the motion.
That gets you the 1,019,000.
Take a vote on it.
I will just say that I am for the budget as it was originally presented. I could go into option 2, but I'm not for any other change to the budget other than option 2, and that's what I'm hoping the rest of the board can agree to. So do we have any other discussion on the amendment as it sits?
I mean, I think I've already said this, but I'll just say it one more time since we're in the discussion again. I do like option 2, and part of the reason is the small computer device line. We already took money from the Chromebooks. It sounds like we're not going to be impacted because of grants this year, but I think later, we're going to talk about technology, and I'm a proponent of minimizing that. And so I think that tracks with the reduction of ABLE. I understand it's a new program. I've said it before, I just don't think it's the right choice for elementary kids to be sitting in front of a computer all day, and that's why I'm an advocate for removing it. And that's why I will vote for the current motion on the table for option 2 plus ABLE.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, 4-3, the nays have it, so the amendment fails. Is there another amendment that someone would like to discuss?
I don't know about discussion. I'll just go ahead and call for the vote on the option 2.
So could you make an amendment, just
Sure.
put in a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we accept the option 2, which would be the reduction of the 189,000 special education managers and 330 small computer device line.
Thank you. And that is, to be clear, that is an amendment to the motion that is currently on the table, correct?
And it'll be added to the resource pool.
Yes, ma'am.
Which only gives 3.
So we have a motion on the table to accept option 2, an amendment to the motion to accept option 2. Do we have any discussion? Oh, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McCusker. Do we have any discussion on that?
President Evans, just for clarity's sake, for the benefit of the board, that is scenario 2, which is an additional 519,000 to be included to increase the salary pool, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
I have a question for clarity. We've talked about it a couple times now about asking potentially for money from the commissioners, and I think I've been told this before, but I just want to clarify, if that is not, would we postpone approving it? Like, we couldn't approve a budget based on a request that may or may not get granted, I guess, right? Is that?
Yeah.
So what does that process look like? If we were to come to consensus to ask, would we approve the budget as is and then amend, or would we not ask at all, or how would that?
We would.
talk about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we would approve a budget, and then do the ask, and then if we do get new money, then we would make a motion to amend the budget as that new money comes in.
So can we put in this, well, maybe we have to vote on Mike's motion as is.
Yeah.
But then if it doesn't pass, could we make a motion for the same thing with the asterisk that we will ask? Can that be part of a motion?
I think so.
I mean, I think, I don't think that's something that would necessarily require a vote, but I mean, someone could go and ask for, I think that's separate from this particular motion. So someone could ask for a motion like that after we do this as a new motion after we're done with this particular one. I don't think that would be outside the rules. I think that'd be reasonable.
I've said this before, the commissioners have always been willing to talk to you about CIP because it's not reoccurring. So if you wanted to add the buses or something back in, you could always get that back. But, I mean, it's up to them. And right now, they're in their budget crunch. And I spoke to a couple of them, and they're just saying, with everything that they've got coming down the pike, including their increase of insurance and the takeover of the fire department, the EMS programs that the municipalities are having problems. The Hagerstown's having issues with their water structure. They got a lot on their plate too. And anything that we have to ask for them reduces their bond rating. And then they can't borrow. And if they can't borrow, then that rate goes down. So we don't want to jeopardize that either, because that just basically is back into the taxpayer.
Right.
So.
President
Whom we
Evans,
represent.
if I may, to Mr. Gesford's point, and just listening to board members' discussion regarding replacement buses, recognizing that in the draft budget, we're still not where we once were. I believe we've targeted $1 million. We have 400,000 there. Just a strategy for this board to consider in the future, and I've discussed this with board leadership. We typically have anywhere from $3 million to $5 million in carry forward dollars at the end of the year. Mr. Gesford referenced that the county has been always open to discussing capital projects or one-time dollars. Beyond the general fund, there's, I believe, value in the board considering strategies to perhaps utilize a part of the carry forward to designate it to enhance the replacement cycle above what is included in the general fund, and perhaps to even request one-time dollars from the Board of Commissioners for that. I think I would be in agreement that that would be likely more amenable. It would allow us to be more aggressive on our bus replacement cycle, which we have fallen behind on. But that allows us, it keeps us more solid from a general fund standpoint. I'll just mention that in the future, when we look at our aging fleet, we are going to need to increase the replacement cycle to around 1 million or more. So I mention this just as a strategy to consider in terms of funds that are not reoccurring and right now not a part of the general fund.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to add one more thing. Our population of students is not going up. We're losing more students, and that's across the state of Maryland.
So if our,
Country.
across the country too, yeah. So that's funding that, when I first came on, I think we were receiving like 90 new students a year. Once COVID hit, it just started going down, and we've not really recovered where we've gotten any more students back into recover that money back. So, you know, that it looks like the trend is going to continue to go down, that we're going to get less and less. So we're going to have to figure this out. So if we don't stop now, it's just we kick the can down the road, and it's going to be more next year. And I've always said, don't set your board forward, you know, up for failure. So, because we may not be here, and we may have new board, and we don't want to set them up for failure. So,
I think we need to look at our historical wage increases for teachers so that everyone understands that if we have money, we give it to teachers. That's the most important group to fund. So in 2023, it was 6%, 2024, 3.5%, 2025, 3%, 2026, 3% with a Christmas bonus. When we have money, we fund teachers. We don't have it.
Any more discussion on the amendment as it sits? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor?
For the amendment.
For the amendment, correct.
which one?
Option 2,
Option 2,
Yeah.
yes.
seeing 4. All those against? 3 against. So that motion passes with a 4-3 vote. And so we now have that added into the original motion. Do we have any other discussion on the motion or amendments being offered? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the vote on the main motion, which is to accept the recommended budget with the amendment as just provided. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? We have a 5-2 vote in favor of passing it with the amendment. So we now have a new, an adopted budget. Thank you, guys. Did you, I want to give you the opportunity, Ms. Beachley, if you wanted to, even though that's not on the agenda, but I wanted to give you that opportunity. If you wanted to go and make that motion randomly, we can do that now. We can do it later if you want to also.
I got to formulate what the motion would be.
Okay, so
Whether it be-
we will pause on that. Very good. So, well, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. That budget is passed. Looking at the rest of the agenda here, future agenda items, I won't read it to y'all. If there's anything you guys would like to add on there, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know, and we will be sure to get it on there as quickly as possible. Move to board member comments. Do we have any comments, anyone? Seeing none, we
Oh.
will, sorry, go ahead.
This is my chance to say it, so I'll say it today. Next business meeting, I'm going to have to leave early because my grandson has a concert. So if I get up and walk out, I don't want anybody to question me about it. That's what I'm doing.
Well, I hope he shines in this concert.
Oh, he does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will adjourn this meeting, and we will move into our work session. Very good. And moving into our work session, I'm just going to pass it right off to Dr. Savine.
Thank you, President Evans. This first segment of our work session, staff will provide an overview of the 2025-26 District Engagement Survey results. This highlights feedback from our students, our staff, and families on key aspects of the school experience. Presentation summarizes specifically trends in school climate, safety, communication, and overall quality to inform continuous improvement efforts across the district. This time, I'm going to turn it over to our two executive directors, Executive Director of Secondary and Elementary, Dr. Wilcox, and Dr. Palmer.
Good afternoon, not Dr. Evans, I'm sorry.
I've been
President
called worse.
Evans, President Evans, Dr. Savine, and members of the board. Do we have slides that will pop up?
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So this afternoon, we want to share with you the results of the district engagement survey. This is our second year taking this survey. And we ask parents, guardians, staff, and students their responses to really get a sense of where they felt like we were doing a great job and where we had opportunities for growth. So you can see the topics that were addressed. Our participation, we had about 3,000 parents and guardians that responded, 1,500 staff members, and about 3,500 students. So I want to take a minute and just give you a sense of the overall slide, because each of our slides that we share will be very similar. So in the top right, you can see that this slide was a respondent from our parents and guardians. Remember, it's parents, guardians, staff, or students. So you'll see that in the top left side. The next line gives you our overall topic. So this slide is about the overall quality of education in Washington County Public Schools, according to our parents. You see then the green line, and that is from the 25-26 school year versus the blue line, which is the 24-25 school year. The bottom left side, you see our answer options, which were excellent, good, fair, or poor. For our purposes today, for the majority of the slides, we are looking at excellent and good combined. So for this slide, you see within Washington County Public Schools, we increased our overall quality according to parents and also in our schools. Our next slide is from our staff members. So this one has all four of the categories, excellent, good, fair, and poor. We have increased in excellent from 17 to 26%. And while our good decreased, when you add excellent and good, that's about 80%, which is higher than what we were the year prior. This slide we're looking at acceptance and belonging, and our next three slides will look at this from all three perspectives. And on this slide, you can see that overall we have seen increases. Our biggest increase is the bottom, where it looks at valuing the background of my students. And our next slide is from staff members. Same question from staff members' perspective. And our biggest increase in this slide is students enjoying going to school. Interestingly, our students felt the same way. That our biggest increase in this area was that students enjoyed going to school. Our next three slides look at safety, security, and student behavior. For our parents, the largest area of increase was feeling of the school being safe and students treating each other's and teachers with respect. From staff members' perspective, we had the highest increase of almost 9 percentage points of students treating staff members with respect. And from our students' perspective, biggest percentage was my school is safe, with again, increases in all categories from 24-25 to 25-26. Our next three slides look at student support. From our parents' perspective, largest increases were in the areas of supporting mental health needs and meeting behavior expectations. For our staff members, there was a 10% increase in meeting behavior expectations, from 65% to 75%. And for our students, our highest increase was in the area of meeting behavior expectations and supporting mental health needs.
The next two slides present responses regarding communication from the perspectives of parents and guardians and staff. Parent and guardian responses on this slide show an improvement in satisfaction with the communication from their student's school in all 5 areas. Communication around required academic support increased by 6% over last year. Staff members responded to the same 5 areas and also increased concerning the communication to parents. Required behavior interventions from school staff saw the biggest positive increase of 6%. The next 3 slides involve community engagement from the perspectives of both parents and guardians, staff, and students. Parents and guardians responded to 7 statements, and all 7 areas showed an improvement over last year. Staff responded to the same 7 statements, and all 7 areas show a slight improvement over last year when it comes to community engagement. Students responded only to 5 statements, and all 5 areas show an overall improvement over last year. The 2 statements with the largest increase of 5% were their school informs families about school-sponsored activities, and the school communicates with my family in a way that I understand. The next 2 slides present responses regarding school experience from the perspective of the parent and guardian and staff. 7 of the 8 areas on the slide show a slight improvement over last year, except for the importance of foreign language programs decreased by 2% from 78% to 76%. Staff responded to the same 8 statements regarding how important do you feel it is for students to have the following experiences. 3 areas saw declines in importance: a 3% decline in college and career readiness programs, a 3% decline in summer learning opportunities, and a 1% decline in foreign language programs. This slide represents student support from the student perspective and covers the same 8 topics as the previous 2 slides. All 8 areas saw an increase in importance, with extracurricular clubs having a 5% increase. The next 3 slides present responses on student success from the perspective of parents and guardians, staff, and then students. Parent and guardian responses show an overall improvement in agreement with the student success in all 5 areas. Again, extracurricular activities saw the largest increase. The statement asked whether the extracurricular activities offered at my student's school matched their child's interest. Staff responded to 4 statements, and all the statements either remained the same or showed a slight increase around student success. Students responded to 5 statements about student success. Increases of 4% are noted in my teachers meet my academic needs, I receive the support I need to prepare for the next grade level/life after high school, and I receive support that addresses my individual needs. The next 3 slides present responses on school leadership from the perspective of parents and guardians, followed by staff, and then concluding with students. Parents and guardians' responses show an overall improvement in the 5 areas on the chart. With the school providing opportunities for its community to input on how to improve the school environment and experience, reflecting a 7% increase over last year. Staff responded to 5 similar statements, and I am familiar with the school improvement plan, had a 2% decrease. This is an area that we can improve on next year. Students responded to 3 statements. All 3 statement responses show an increase with my school effectively sharing information with my family on a regular basis, seeing a 5% increase. The last 2 slides cover staff responses to culture, safety, and wellness for staff. All 10 areas show an increase in agreement over last year. Staff responses to I enjoy coming to work saw the largest increase at 6% over last year. 95% of staff reported being engaged in their work. At this time, we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. Well, at first, my question was going to be, are you hiding anything that's negative? Because it took a while to get to something that went down. And so my question is this typical that we see this? I mean, outside of 5, I think I circled, that had a slight reduction, the biggest being a 3% from one year or the other. Is this normal that we see this kind of improvement on everything?
I don't think so.
I mean, this is pretty phenomenal.
I would be curious to find out the age bracket of the student that is actually taking this and the parent and the poverty level of the families that are taking it. Did we get that broken down from school to school so we know?
Have it broken down school to school, and schools actually used the data from last year. So I would say a piece that maybe has helped with the positive response is that schools did use the data. It is part of their school improvement plans. They saw the areas where they were weak, or schools looked at areas and chose, not everything, but chose the areas where they felt like they needed to work on and did address it. This response is from grades 4 to 12.
I just want to add to Dr. Palmer's comments. I credit executive staff, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Willow in the back, and our principals. We work on an ongoing basis to review this data. It's a part of the monthly meetings. We look at it from a district standpoint, and our school level leaders break it down by school, and that is a part of the school improvement process, and our executive directors work with school leadership teams as well as teachers to make this actionable and to delve a little bit deeper and request additional feedback from parents and students so that we make sure that we're getting it right and we've interpreted things right so that we can achieve some of the results that you've seen just presented to you. It is not normal to see this level of support from the stakeholder groups. In particular, when you see, in comparison to last year, many districts would consider those results to be on the higher end. So,
I will also add your question about Title I. So we merged our Title I survey, our community school survey, and our survey that went out to all families. And our Title I and COP schools, many of them had very high percentages of return from parents because they were finding all ways to get to parents. They were trying to get a very high response rate.
So is it possible for us to get that breakdown of schools so we know that, and I'm thinking maybe like a school like maybe Northern Middle may have a higher or maybe a lower number versus a school that would be more populated and not so impoverished? It just seems like,
Yeah, we have it by school.
you know, I see this, and I'm really shocked about this family engagement plan. I mean, I thought we do so much, you know, trying to get families involved and stuff, and I guess we're not really hitting the boat on that because we are like 60% people that aren't engaged in that, and I thought we would have seen a better engagement. I mean, it went up a little bit, but 45 and 44%. I mean, that's basically saying that we still have a lot of work to do in those areas, and I really thought that we would see a better increase on that, so that was kind of shocking for me.
I think since COVID, we have, at least I can speak to the elementary level, we've really worked to bring families back in because for so long we weren't allowing visitors or volunteers in classrooms, and so across the board, I would say that's an
Somebody's missing
area.
something, because, I mean, I think we do a lot of that, but somebody's not getting that information. I mean, we're sitting at 45 and 44% and 52 and 58. I mean, so there's still a lot of work to be done. We're on these other ones, I mean, we're really kicking it, you know, and it seems like, you know, when you average everything out, it can be kind of, you know, it kind of blur the thing because this area may not be getting what we need and this area must be really getting a lot. So I want to see that breakdown that, you know, where are we missing the boat on some of that. But That was the ones that I was really thought we would be better at, and we're
President
not.
Evans, if
We're
I may,
better.
to Mr. Guessford's question, the answer is absolutely yes. And we can work with our staff to share that information with the board. And you've pointed out an exceptional point, and that's exactly what we do in terms of school improvement. While there's a lot of strong data here, there are some spots where we want to target for improvement. And that's why this data is disaggregated in that way, and that's why we work very intentionally with our school level leadership teams. But we can share that with the board if that is the desire of the board as well.
My question is, looking at the participation, looks like probably something you would expect to be an average result. I'd be curious what the participation was last year as well. If we have less respondents, I wonder if that could be some of the increase, but I think I personally don't hear a fraction of the complaints that I've heard last year, so I tend to think that these numbers are very legitimate. My one concern is, and I forget what slide it was on, there was one where the students didn't feel as though they respected each other. And I wonder if that goes in with the family engagement. I don't know that there is anything at all we can do about that. I mean, you can't just tell a kid to respect another kid, right? So how do we teach that? Is there a strategy in place for that? Because I wonder if the kids were able to go and respect each other, would they then, clearly our staff is doing exactly what they need to do and then some to go and foster a great learning environment. But I wonder if we were able to get the kids to show respect to one another, would that go and kind of bring the whole entire puzzle together? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
We do work in our classes. Our teachers work really hard to build positive cultures, and I feel like that building that positive culture is part of learning how to respect one another. So, I mean, I would say that's an area that we work on significantly at all levels.
Right.
Continue to work on with our school-wide, especially in secondary, with our school-wide programs that we run and events that we do to encourage that. And as you said, it's something that we can continue to work on. We can't make everybody do it, but we can continue to educate them to make the right choice.
Yeah.
Dr. Palmer, do the counselors still have groups where they talk about things like this and teach respect towards other students?
Yeah, so they do lessons in classrooms, and then they pull small groups or one-on-one or as needed.
Speaking from a student perspective, at least in years past, I have a shortened schedule, so I can't be speaking entirely intelligently about this. We've had time allotted to take this survey. Was that still offered during this school year, or was that more of like a school-by-school basis? Because I feel like having that time, I think it was during my math class, like freshman year, we sat down and took this survey to make sure that we got student input. I think that 23% is a little bit low for student input. But overall, all the improvements that we're seeing are amazing. They're showing the progress that we've made within our schools.
Thank you. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. President Evans, members of the board, the next segment, in alignment with the Maryland Phone Free Schools Act, I've asked staff to present the current school practices against newly established state mandates and to provide a summary of potential implementation strategies. Dr. Palmer and Dr. Wilcox will remain, and I know Dr. Willow will join us as our deputy superintendent, and I believe he has the lead for our cell phone policy update.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sovine, President Evans, and board members. Today, as Dr. Sovine said, we're here to discuss our current cell phone policy and any changes we may need to make to our policies and practices to comply with the new Maryland Phone Free Schools Act. The goal of the Maryland Phone Free Schools Act is to improve focus, safety, and climate. The act requires an updated district policy by the 2027-2028 school year. Students cannot access and use their cell phones during the full school day. A full school day is defined as the start of the school day until the end of the school day. So for example, most of our secondary schools begin at 8:35 and end at 3:30. As originally introduced, the bill defines store as prohibiting a student from carrying the device on their person during the academic day. However, the final bill defines store only as secure in a manner determined by the County Board of Education. The act allows for limited exceptions and tiered progressive discipline is required. WCPS currently has policy JICJ and regulation JICJ-R, use of personally owned electronic devices. Currently, cell phones are prohibited during instructional time, but are allowed on the student and can be accessed during lunch and passing periods. Use is considered a privilege, and schools may confiscate devices for violations. Policy JK, student discipline, provides guidelines for progressive discipline that range from a level 1 to level 4, or from a warning to out-of-school suspension. This chart provides a visual representation of our current WCPS use of personally owned electronics device policy and regulation, as well as comparing it to the new Maryland Phone-Free Schools Act. The chart outlines the areas of instructional time, lunch transitions, policy, storage, consistency, and discipline. The second column shows what's currently in our policy or regulation or practices within our schools, and in the far right showcases what is now required for implementation in the 27-28 school year under Maryland law.
So we would like to share 4 options today that would address the Maryland law. The first one is a total cell phone ban, classroom caddies, locker-based storage, or a Yonder bag, which I have right here. So a total cell phone ban would eliminate the cell phone in the school completely. It would simplify expectations of no phones on campus. Students would be engaged in instruction throughout the day, and there would be much less enforcement during the school day because from the start there would be no cell phones. The concerns are that it would be a significant enforcement challenge from the start and at entry point as kids come into school. We'd likely have a strong parent and community resistance to students not being able to access cell phones, especially those that are reliant on those for after-school pickups and after-school activities. The second idea is a classroom caddy, which is very low cost. Visible compliance, students would place the cell phones right in a caddy each time they walked into class, and that would also reduce the distractions during instruction. The concerns would be the inconsistency across classroom, teachers having to enforce that every time a child walks into class, and that students would still have their devices as they're walking through the hall, as they're in lunch, and throughout the day. Third option is locker storage. It does meet the Maryland law, which requires it to be stored. We can use our existing infrastructure, so the cost would be fairly low. It would be clear and consistent for all students and staff. It's more practical than some of the other options we just talked about. The concern is still the building level. We would have to be consistent in enforcing. Again, parent concerns, and then we have a few schools that don't have enough lockers, so we'd have to figure out some of those logistics. Our third option is the Yonder pouch, which this one is locked and we can't get in it. So it's a special magnet that goes on here for it to be able to open. However, and I'll pass it around just so that you can see it. However, it can easily be cut open. You can see that it's, although you may not be able to get the magnet open, it's still kind of flimsy in terms of how it's created. So if a student really wanted to get into it, there'd be no problem getting into it. The positive is that it does meet the requirement. It would be consistent across all of our schools. It would reduce the teachers' enforcement, the burden that they would have on making sure kids were having their phones away at the start of class. And it allows the students to retain it. So in the morning, they'd put their cell phone in the underbag and they'd be carrying it with them throughout the school day. The concern is the cost. So not only the cost of first-time purchase, but cost of lost, broken, issues with getting them open, and students that just wanted to get to their cell phone, so they cut them open or had another way to get into it, which is how the students would bypass the system. The device is still on the student, and so the logistics of distributing them in the morning, getting them back in the afternoon, unlocking delays, and then just ongoing operational management required for this.
So we looked at all 4 options, and the idea today is to have this work session because ultimately, while we will make a recommendation to you, it's actually going to be in policy. So this, the goal today when we had a policy committee meeting was to engage the board in a conversation around what we want to see in an updated policy. I also want to just point out that for our listening audience, when we update policy, as a reminder, our stakeholders will have the opportunity to comment as well as we go through first read, second read. So today is really just the start of a conversation. And so the hope is that through this, we can go to policy committee and begin to implement the changes, the desire of the board, hear public feedback, and go from there. The recommended option that staff bring to you today is a locker-based storage model. And really, the thought process behind this was that all of these options have strengths and all these options have drawbacks. But the thought here was that when a student walks into the building, the secondary level, they go to their locker, they store their phone in their locker, and it is locked for the remainder of the day until dismissal when they go back. At the elementary level, while cell phones, it's not as common to see our primary students with cell phones as it is with our middle and high school students. This would be the locker / cubbies in the back of the elementary classroom, as many of them do not have what we would think of a traditional locker at the secondary level. So what we want to talk just a little bit more about is an example of what discipline looks like, as Dr. Wilcox shared, progressive model. Is this the exact progressive model that we'd follow? No, it's an example of what that might look like. Mr. Burkett has his cell phone out. It's observed in class. Mr. Burkett's warned he needs to go put it back into his locker. The second time Mr. Burkett has his, and I'm picking on you, Mr. Burkett, because you don't have your microphone to comment back. So he's assigned a detention. Yeah. So as a detention, and then from there, it's potential detention with confiscation, right, until the end of the day, or until parent pickup, or an in-school intervention, right? And so I think, again, part of this piece, and I'm going to slide ahead here, is really the key to getting the policy right is the training and the rollout, right? And so the consistency that needs to happen with our staff. And so our plan really is to roll forward with a policy update. Then we need to train staff. What are the expectations within the building? Our communication plan, what does it mean when we communicate to our, not just our stakeholders inside our schools, but all of our parents and guardians? And we want to actually, in policy committee, we had a conversation. We want this to be more than just around the idea of cell phones. Dr. Savine and I know others, we've engaged in conversations around this idea of screen time. And I know we're going to get into that here in our next presentation a little bit around Chromebooks. But I do think it's important, before everyone came in, we talked a little bit about the average use of screen time when it comes to cell phones and social media. Does any board member, other than Ms. McCusker, who heard the answer, want to share what that average time that a teenager spends on social media right now? A day.
12.
So social media, 4.8 hours a day.
Wow.
That's average.
That's average. Screen time is close to 8 hours. And so when we're talking about screen time, we're also adding video games, we're adding television, we're adding other factors. And so I say that is up almost 2 hours from 2015. So part of is educating, like right now, I think in the same research that came out in January 2026, and we're going to spend some time at our June business meeting discussing this a little further, but only, I think it was around 48% of parents know how to monitor the time that students are spending on social media. And when you look at some of the results that come from that, again, we'll spend a little more time in the next presentation. The goal here isn't to tell people how to raise children or any of that. It's to work together collaboratively on how we can address screen time, because there's no doubt it's having an impact on student learning, but it's also having an impact on student mental health and some of the other factors that you just heard in the survey. So the hope here, when I talk about communication plan, this isn't just about policy communication. It's how can we work as a community to ensure that screen time is still in a healthy fashion. So I share that. And then the full implementation is required by 2728. I did skip a slide, and I want to come back, and I, again, wanted to sort of explain how it all goes together. There are exceptions in the law. IEP 504 accommodations. And so what might that look like? You might see that a student needs it for accessibility. And you might say, well, Dr. Willow, don't we have one-to-one? Actually, we will not be one-to-one next year based on the budget that you approved. That'll be a reduction in Chromebooks. And so therefore, there could be scenarios where a student needs a device to meet accessibility. Health needs, you see that probably more common. Students who are monitoring maybe their blood sugar levels and their phone is an example. And then sometimes language support, just translation for ML. Those are exceptions that are already, for the most part, written into your current policy, and they need to stay there to meet the requirements of the law. So, Mr. Evans, I think we, talked a little bit about setting up some questions that would help guide policy committee, and these are really your questions. Is there consensus around a staff recommendation of using their lockers? Is there something else board members would like to see? And then the question that always comes up is 2728, but we know from previous conversations there's been a desire to maybe move a little bit faster or sooner. And so do we want to get this in place before 2627? So I think we'll be available to answer questions, but also these were questions for you all to begin to guide where we want to go in policy committee to update cell phones.
Well, I would say, based on previous discussions, we'll start with the what I think is going to be the easiest question first. When do we want to start this policy? So does anyone want to start with that?
Yesterday.
Agreed. Soon.
Yeah, so not next, so not 27, 28, but 2026, 27, this upcoming fiscal year.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Every student doesn't have a locker, correct?
So in most of our schools, every student has provided the opportunity for a locker, but many of our students do not take lockers. There are two schools that right now we'll have to look at as a possible solution, and those are our two largest schools, North Hagerstown High School, South Hagerstown High School, that they do not physically have enough lockers. The solution there is that many of our students don't take traditional lockers like we all did when we were in school. There are other locker type formats that you can purchase to offset. So think, not quite like this, but you walk into the Funkstown Post Office and there are smaller lockers where things for personal that can be locked up, like a mailbox type thing, where for students who do not want lockers but still are required. And we're working with facilities just having a conversation of what that could look like at North and South, because they would be different, but we don't want to put the cart before the horse. We want to make sure that the board is in agreement with our recommendation.
So going back to the first question, do we have a consensus to start this upcoming school year?
Yes.
Okay, so very good. So then the next question ties into Ms. Murray's here. So I do like I'll start it off by saying I do like the idea of doing the lockers. It does seem like it would be the easiest to implement, along with still giving access for those cell phones after school hours, because we know there's an awful lot of extracurricular activities where parents feel safer being able to be contacted on their kid's cell phone. So that's my thought on it. Does anyone else have anything to add on that?
Well, the cell phone lockers, which are either thumbprint, key, or combination, well, they're smaller, so we should be able to adjust that in the buildings so that they can get a cell phone locker or a regular locker. My guess is a lot of people who have lockers now will say cell phone lockers enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
The thing
Go ahead.
the parent information is probably the most incredible part of this. For them to know that thinning of the cortex so that their kids will actually look like they have dementia by the time they enter the workforce is a very important thing. And that's just one. Everyone wants their kids not only to do well, but be well, not be anxious, not be suicidal. So this is just a small part of us wanting them to know the things that go into that.
And they have to understand, this is a state mandate. This is a state law. This isn't Washington County Public Schools making this up. So they have to understand that.
I do have a question about the lockers. So I remember in middle school, I would go to my locker between classes and get my book for the next class. I understand we probably don't have the big books, and that's why they don't necessarily take them, but does this allow them the opportunity to get to their cell phones and use them between classes?
That would be a yes.
Yes.
If you have to hesitate, that would be yes.
I just needed a microphone. But the answer to that is yes. But typically, when you're talking about student transition, so a couple things to keep in mind. It's going to look different at high school than middle school because we double block math and English. There's not as much transition at middle school. Typically, students get 3 to 4 minutes. So you're not talking about an unlimited amount of time here to get to your locker, and other times students want to go to the bathroom. So I do think the answer to that is yes, but I don't think it's to the same degree. It'll actually be probably a little more challenging in high school where there is more movement and than it would be in middle school.
But more people on hall duty.
There are.
So I would like just us to look at the policy, because in the policy it says, school day, time of arrival on school property until the departure of school property. Now, I was here and voted on this when we started this. Some of the board members weren't here, and we indicated that included buses, because it does say in the property that a bus is a part of the school property. So that was to be from bus to bus. There was no cell phones. So we already have a policy that says there's no cell phones in schools. So I visited a couple of schools, and apparently a lot of our administrators don't know the policy, because there were pouches hanging on the wall, and I asked what those pouches were, and they said, well, they're for cell phones. And I said, well, where are the cell phones? And there was not one cell phone in those pouches that were hanging on the wall. But we looked around the room, and there was kids with cell phones. So those pouches and those lockers that are going to cost the county and the school system money to do will probably not be used if we don't enforce it. And I will tell you that some teachers enforce it and some won't. Now, I spoke to parents over the weekend. Some of them actually, one lady stood up and applauded me for saying that we were going to do away with cell phones. And I said, well, unfortunately, we already have that policy, but apparently our staff, has not adhered to the policy. So I would just say we already have a policy in effect. We just need to enforce it. And I'm not saying that I think the teacher should not have a cell phone on them, but I do know that teachers do use their cell phones during the school day, and that is not acceptable if you're going to have, set an example. So the teacher needs to put that in their desk drawer, and if they need to go to the teacher lounge to use the cell phone. We have got to get back to having consequences on, because what happens is this follows you right into the workforce. And I'll tell you, I see it, every day, employees on their cell phone, and there's policies in the workforce that says no cell phone, but, and they get in trouble. I mean, we had to fire people for driving with a cell phone, and they couldn't understand why they were fired. And I'm like, because it says you're not supposed to be using a held device. So when we don't start the policy, and the consequences early on, it sets the example. I don't think we need to, we have to treat everybody like adults. And I think teachers are okay, but we have to tell them they've got to say no. And we know that if there's a cell phone in a building, it's going to get used because the kids are going to use it. So anybody has sit here and thinking that, oh, well, we're going to put them in a locker and they're going to lock up. These kids are smart. They're going to figure a way to do what they want to do when they want to. And you're going to have some teachers and some administrators that are going to just say, okay, I'm not fighting the battle. So we have got to have a hard stop on this. And this policy that we put into effect, we did not adhere to it. So it's our fault. I mean, board members, we're at fault to this too. I mean, so, I don't really know if we have much changing to do. We just need to kind of go with our policy. Now, to the exceptions to the rules, I think, there are kids that probably need them. They can walk down to the office and pick their cell phone up, and they can use it in the office, and they need to be kept in the office. If there's a medical exception, I understand that. Language, do we really need it for language? Don't we teach English in all of our classes, and we should be doing that? If we have a barrier, then we have a problem. We should be teaching our kids English. This IEP and 401, I'm not really sure how we get around that, but the discipline, I just think, we get so laxed in discipline that it gets watered down, and the kids go like, well, it's no big deal. I'll just take the warning, and then it's a warning and a warning and a warning, and it's never any consequences. So that's what I have to say about that.
Well, I like it, and all very valid points.
The only thing from a student perspective is through the locker restriction of cell phones themselves. I personally, it's less of a I need to be on my phone thing. It's more of a I like to see it and make sure that I know where it is. Because I've had a student break into my locker before, get into my locker without my combination and access the things in my locker. If I were in the shoes of I've put it away in a locker and never really am able to access it all day, that would cause me anxiety itself, because what if someone were to break into that locker without me knowing? Having something
Keep it
like
at home. Keep your cell phone at home. You don't need it.
Obviously that's a solution, but I've had nights where I've stayed at school until 9 p.m. due to marching band, due to student council, due to this and that. If my parents don't know where I am until 9 p.m. and I need to coordinate a ride with them to get me home, how am I going to do that without a cell
You
phone?
communicate with your parents earlier. That's what I did when I was a kid. I had the same thing. I was in band, I was in chorus, and it was late at night. And I just told my parents, 9 o'clock, pick me up. Communication is important. We didn't have cell phones before. We need to get rid of this anxiety stuff. We don't need to add this stuff to the plate. We're trying to get rid of this stuff because we want kids to learn. We have numbers that back me up to saying we are not where we should be in education. And this cell phone and these screens have been the problem. When I came on here, this board, we spent $15 million, which I said no to, but other people said yes. And we have had no increase in our educational, process where the kids are getting smarter, because we're testing them out and they're not getting smarter. We just need to tell people no. You don't need this stuff.
I agree with the
Communicate.
disciplinary side of things. I entirely do, and I believe that the disciplinary plan outlined, or the policy, like the disciplinary plan outlined is beneficial, especially due to the fact that it is removing the out-of-school suspension, which is stopping students further from learning, even though they have access to their cell phones. However, it's hard for me to, I support the policy, I support everything it stands for, but I just don't know that the locker solution is our best thing. Although I know it's kind of a flawed system. No matter what you choose, kids are going to find a way out. Kids are going to find something. I think it is probably the best of the options presented, but I want to make sure that people know that is an element, especially because if we are in a situation where, God forbid, anything scary happens and you can't access the hallways, you have no access to your phone. You cannot communicate with your parents still. Having that phone in sight through a caddy or something like that may be able to help.
Mr. Evans, if I could, just to share a couple things that I think are relevant. Mr. Gessford does mention the intent, but over time, this policy has also been watered down, and I think those are the things that we need to look at. We did allow, on page 2, other exceptions. Personally, owned electronic devices may be granted by the adult, including lunchtime and between classes. And we also put something in there about allowing it on the bus. And so I think when we go and we look at this policy, to go back and what Mr. Gessford shared on page 1 is accurate, but then we put in exceptions over time that has sort of watered this down. And I think bare minimum, there's an opportunity there to sort of reset consistent expectations across the system.
And not all kids, and I'm going to say all students, and you're probably one of them that would not take advantage of it. But the problem is most of our students aren't like you. They're not the top level students. And that's where I'm concerned about it, being on this board 12 years and we still have numbers that are not improving. And we need to find ways to correct that.
I'm not here to try to be a voice for top level students only, though. I'm here to be a voice for all the students.
But I just want to know,
And
I'm not picking on you.
I don't
and
take
being-
it personally, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure that students are able to get access to their phones when needed and are able to use it. As you said, it's a thing you have to learn for the workforce. Part of that is also intrinsic management of, do I pull out my phone in this moment or do I have the time to complete my assignment? That process in and of itself requires that critical thinking. And if the phone is just away in a locker, it's difficult to do that. But nevertheless, that's kind of not the point here with the policy that is specifically saying you are not allowed to have phones within the school day. However, I just believe that having an ability to contact your parents within the school day, if any emergent thing happens. I've had students had to call Ubers to be picked up from schools. I've had students have to call Ubers to be picked up from schools, Venmo one another in case I can't pay for my lunch today. Can you pay for it and I'll give you Venmo money? Stuff like that. I think things like that, although the Venmo could be organized outside of school, they are important within the life of a student nowadays.
Nora, I love you and I love having you on this board, but the anxiety that you have right now about not seeing a cell phone makes the point that it's anxiety producing. I've never seen you get this upset about anything. I wonder how many other students out there are so controlled by that contraption that they couldn't possibly give it up.
I'm more anxious about what this may mean for the future. And if our phones are being locked away in the locker or in a hallway, God forbid if anything happens, I won't be able to get out there. And if I'm in that situation where I'm in a classroom locked and unable to access anyone, I would feel incredibly helpless. And I do not want any student to have to deal with that.
But
In
what
my
is
day,
having-
we went to the front office and made those phone calls. And vice versa, parents could make a phone call back to the office.
I'm not speaking in a general day because I do agree with that. You can go to the office if you need to go to the doctors, if you need to go to or if you have a smaller personal situation. I'm speaking more in the possibility of anything happening to our schools.
I'll admit, I see your point about the lockers, and when I thought about it, if you have thousands of students putting their phones in the locker, anybody with bad intentions could break in almost any locker and get a cell phone. That's why I was a proponent of those pouches. They cost a little more on the front end. We're going to have some expenses getting these other lockers, but at least with the pouches, you could keep them with you. You could see them. But really what you're talking about, and this isn't a slight on you, it's a slight on all of us, it's an addiction. And it's an addiction and a distraction, especially for young people that are in schools that are there to learn. And I've had students tell me of certain teachers that allow the kids to get the cell phones out. And that shouldn't be. If there's a cell phone policy that says you shouldn't have them out during school, why are some teachers not abiding by that policy? And then it makes it really hard on the next teacher who won't let them have them out, right?
And
Yes.
I entirely agree with that. I agree it's an addiction. I know my phone causes me anxiety. I know that being in that habit of scrolling for that amount of time every single day is not for your health. However, there has to be a point where we have to balance the usages of the cell phone as sheerly a contact device versus the ability to get on Instagram Reels, to Snapchat your friends, something like that, and having that ability to contact someone in an emergency situation.
So you wouldn't like the pouch idea either?
The pouch idea I'm more okay with because there are ways to override it. If every teacher has a magnet that they can use in worst case scenarios, if something were to happen and you have the pouch on yourself, then I believe that would be a good solution.
So I'm gonna interject because we could debate this all we want about should we do it or should we not. The fact of the matter is the law's pretty cut and dry. We have to ban school cell phones from first bell to last bell, and whether you like it or not, it's gonna have to be off of you. That's the state law. So there's nothing we can do about that. I will be perfectly honest and say that I do agree with it, that you shouldn't have access to it like that, but that's another debate. So moving the conversation forward, I hear one just say we need to enforce what's already on the books. I hear another say that they like the Yonder pouches, but I think it sounds like you want to know what the cost is
Well,
first.
I kind of was for the total cell phone ban, to
Okay.
be honest with you, at least for elementary and middle, and then figure out, okay, what are we going to do for high school? I do think there's a different level of responsibility amongst high school students that we could expect of them and of staff.
Okay.
But, so I lean more towards a total cell phone ban.
Like obeying law,
Huh?
like obeying
Just
the
in
law.
other words, not
Yeah.
bringing it into school at all.
Yes.
I am for bell to bell. I am.
In which way, though?
So basically, I'm okay if they have it on the bus and that sort of thing. So for me, I am a parent. I do have a child in school, and there are times where,
I get the why. We've kind of discussed that.
okay,
I'm just-
that's
what
fine.
is it
So
that you're
yes,
for?
yes.
So,
bell to bell.
but which one? So,
What do you
like,
mean, which one?
do you want the kids to put it in a locker? Do you want the Yonder
Okay.
bag?
That, I think that the locker might be the best option
Okay.
for me.
Any other thoughts, questions?
I was just going to say, I am totally against the bags. I could see people bringing scissors, utility knives, magnets. I'm sure you can buy one on Amazon. Give me a magnet to open this sucker. And that's what I mean, that's immediately what I would do. So I am not for that. I love the idea of a total ban. And I do know, and I'm with you, Mike, as far as what, we did. Cell phones came out when I was in high school, but it was like a giant walkie-talkie. And so I didn't use it. But I do think having access to it after school, I don't love the idea that the lockers, in my head, perfect world is little cell phone lockers that can't unlock until the end of the day, so that there's no option to get to them between classes. I understand logistically it might be hard, But that's where my head is at. I know that would be a lot of cost, though. So maybe for now, I would vote for is the current locker proposal.
Any thoughts, Linda?
I agree with what Ashley is saying. I think it would help the bus drivers if the kids were allowed to have their phones on the bus. It would keep them quiet because, it's not a fun job being a bus driver most days. So bell to bell, before and after school. I'm not sure about the lockers or the pouches, to be honest with you. I can't decide.
Lockers or the what?
Pouches.
Pouches?
I can't decide on that right now.
Okay,
I
that's
have to
fine.
think about
I
it.
just kind of want to get a thought for it because we're going to discuss this in policy committee, so I just want to get a thought for it.
Can you make the student responsible if they damage the bag, for paying for the bag?
You would try to do that as much as possible.
you're
I
not gonna
mean,
get
it's
kids'
no
parents.
different than I don't want to sit here and give you a false hope that we could do that. I mean, they're pretty easy, as you can tell, as they were passed around. And yes, I'm sure there are magnets, off magnets, and things like that could be purchased that would make it difficult. We would try our best, like if anything was vandalized, to hold students accountable, but you can't always know who did what.
Which I'm for the lockers. I'm definitely for the lockers. I'm just expressing that for elementary and middle, I probably have a different attitude.
All right, very good. I appreciate the discussion, guys. We will take these comments forward to the policy committee, and we'll move forward from there. Next up.
Thank you, President Evans. Board members, our next topic for discussion is just an overview of our current status regarding one-to-one Chromebook initiative. Also anticipating likely action now has been the action of the board in terms of reducing our Chromebook in our schools. You'll see a presentation recommendation through Dr. Willow, our Deputy Superintendent, based on feedback that we've received from board members and certainly a recommendation of staff to reduce at some levels our Chromebook initiative. Dr. Willow.
Thank you again. And I just want to start by talking a little bit about screen time. Because we're going to shift gears here a little bit. And there is a lot of research out there. And I want to start by just having the conversation that not all screen time is created equal. And let me give you some background on what I'm referring to there. There's learning, and then there's also the entertainment piece. And so the average teen spends an hour and 50 minutes a day on TikTok. An hour and 30 minutes on, make sure Snapchat. And so I say that because that is not the same as a student who's practicing math fluency on their tablet. So what we want to look at is not just this idea of screen time, but what is it that students are doing? And so when we look at this, we take into account, is it learning or is it entertainment? Am I actively engaged in what I'm doing, which, as Dr. Zentmeyer knows, that's a different part of your brain as you're looking at active versus passive learning. Purpose also matters, right? That goes back to that active purpose. What am I doing on this? And then the other thing we need to keep in mind is that age matters. We educate as early as 4 years old, pre-K, and we go all the way up to 21 in some cases. And so as Dr. Zentmeyer shared earlier, there is brain research that's very different on how we look at 4-year-olds versus how we look at 21-year-olds, although there are some similarities. And so I share that. What we know is that purposeful academic use can support learning. The opposite of that, passive or distracting use, reduces focus, and that our younger students need more hands-on learning, social play, interaction, learning to communicate with each other, speaking, in terms of, and listening and social norms that go along with it. And also, I think we've always said technology should enhance, not replace teaching. So what do we hear when I'm out in classrooms? Do I have quantitative data on this? No. But most of folks that I talk with, staff-wise, devices increase access, flexibility, and probably the biggest thing that I hear anymore is I'm able to give feedback quicker. But many of our staff also share that devices can create distraction. and I'm not just talking cell phones here, I'm talking about even Chromebooks, that yes, students can get off task with a Chromebook. And so what most teachers want is balanced use, not complete elimination. So let's talk about where we're currently at within WCPS. We are 1-to-1 right now in Chromebooks across grades 1 through 12. In our pre-KK, it's more of a, I'm not going to call it a cart model, but it's a limited model of 10 devices within each of those classrooms. Usage varies significantly by grade level, by far. High school, they're utilized the most, and in elementary, utilized less often. What do our devices support? And so what we're really talking about there is instruction. You have HQIM, you Google Classroom, assessments. I'm not just talking about state assessments here. I'm talking in general around the local assessments that we've reviewed at previous work sessions. Communication, Google Docs, Remind, and then of course the accessibility. And let me be clear on sort of what the accessibility means, because I didn't get the opportunity earlier. This is some of the stuff that we talk about text to speech or speech to text, or even screen magnification, where a student needs things enhanced, or closed captions. And so those are types of things when we talk about accessibility that you sometimes see within special ed. So also in our current state, we did talk a little bit about the use of HQIM. I do want to be clear, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the model. We do have hard copy physical materials. Even all the way up in the high school, we try to stay balanced as much as possible. We also have assessments, and one of the, well, actually all three of these we're very proud of. The curriculum, digital citizenship and computer science curriculum robotics, has been recognized at the state and national level. And so who teaches digital citizenship? Most often that's our library media specialists who teach that as part of Encore in the elementary grades. Then it continues into middle school. Computer science and robotics and AI are also part of that. But as you know from previous presentations, our career technical education programs also get into those areas. So what is it that we're proposing to move to based on the earlier vote on our budget? Is that pre-K through 5 would move more to that 2-to-1 ratio. And what I mean there is for every 2 students, 1 device. And so what we're talking about here is more of that, what you see currently in pre-K to K. So you have devices in each classroom, but it's not 1-to-1. So the way elementary sets up and how they use these as part of learning stations, the idea is that most of our elementary is physical text. The idea here, though, is that when it comes time to assess, and we do assess in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, if you stay 2-to-1, you still have enough for every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader to be able to take their local and state assessments, which is important because there is no paper option anymore. All of our assessments are now adaptive. And what that means is as I get questions correct or incorrect, the questions change. And so the idea is that the assessments are going to level you out on where you know or what you don't know. And adaptive is not possible on paper. And so that's why there is no paper version anymore of an MCAP. And that's why our assessments mirror what the state assessments look like, both locally and at that state level. I do want to point out for elementary, the elementary resource that this board, previous board actually approved, CKLA. We did not buy the electronic version of that for students. We did for teachers, but our students have physical copies of the resource. The same with our elementary math workbooks. If you recall, we pay extra so that every student gets their own paper, pencil workbook that goes along with our math resources. We're consistently putting hard copy items in front of our elementary students. And just because I get this question once every 6 weeks, it has nothing to do, but I'm going to also tell you we teach cursive writing. So because that's an important part of our curriculum. So that is elementary. Under this proposed, I guess it's now official, changes for middle school, we are 6 to 8. What we're proposing is more to a cart-based model. As I shared earlier, all of our students are 1-to-1. In the current middle school setup, what that means is I have a device and I take the device with me from my English class to my math class to physical education, it's my device. In some cases, I also take that device home. What we're talking about here is a cart model. The actual Chromebook stays in the English, math, science, social studies classroom. Laptops do not leave the classroom. Scheduled access during instruction. I also want to point out that we purchase hard copy materials for middle school. We are not completely online, although middle school students are using the devices more for word processing. This is where we do, as part of our CTE curriculum, start to teach word processing skills, touch typing, things like that, as our students are beginning to type and submit more essays as they prepare for high school. So there's a balanced approach here at middle school. The CART models, does this mean that our Encore classes would not have a cart? No, not necessarily. When, for a middle school model, maybe just a reminder for our listening audience, when our sixth graders go to Encore, and that would be physical education or library media or, art, technology, those carts sit empty in the sixth grade classrooms. They're not being used because the sixth grade teachers are on planning. So if there was a scenario where there was an activity that required that, there still would be devices available for teachers to use as part of those curriculum. But again, as a balanced curriculum, we do want to ensure that our students are up and moving and not always attached to a screen. So the move here, again, would put carts in our English, math, science, social studies classrooms. High school, no change. It's maintaining one-to-one, and there's a lot of reasons for that. At this point, the daily amount of coursework, there is more typing, writing, research. A number of our students are in college-level courses, whether that be through APIB, but as you know from past presentations, over 70% of your seniors the year before took Hagerstown Community College dual credit courses, and they need to be able to access the curriculum in those courses. And while I know not every student was successful, what we know is that about 93% of our students passed all their classes at the community college. And so the recommendation, this doesn't quite work where you put carts in classrooms. We've been using before, even go back to high school, when I was an administrator, before Chromebooks, before iPads, Dell, Windows PCs, they've been around in high school just because the curriculum is so different depending on the pathway and options that you choose. Now, with that being said, you have hard copy textbooks. Curriculum Instruction Committee, we've been purchasing AP resources that are in print. We've purchased English resources that are in print or math workbooks. So even though we're keeping them, I want to be clear here. It's not that means that students are on them all day, every day. It just means that it's more efficient for a student to have a device in high school based on the 8-period day schedule. Just a couple other things that maybe that our listening audience, Chromebook costs right now are, they change, I'm going to say daily, but maybe hourly depending on, and part of that is what we're experiencing, a shortage of chips, or sometimes you get a quote. Quotes right now for Chromebooks are only good for 10 days. And then after that, you have to get a new quote. And so the prices change, but ideally that is a cost of about $450. Generally, we get 5 years. We have some devices that are at 6 years or 7 years. What tends to happen at 5 years? Well, the biggest one that you have to decide, just like any other thing, whether you're talking an appliance, whether you're talking an automobile, when it gets to a certain age and the battery and other things start to fail, is it worth the investment in keeping something that's 5 years old? We can replace screens. We've fixed keyboards, hinges, but the battery, much like your cell phone, when it starts holding a charge, some of you may experience that when you use a cell phone over time, the battery starts to dwindle. And so now you're talking about having a device plugged in all to the time to be able to access it, and we're just not set up for that. So typically that's what holds us around that 5-year. Funding. General fund, $2.4 million in FY26 is what's in your general fund. After today's vote, you are down to 1.7 million in the FY27 general operating budget, and that would sustain the new model in elementary and middle schools that I presented to you earlier. Just for an interest here, I went back, and Mr. Pruitt helped look at all of the purchases we've made over the last 4 purchases, I should say, and the quantity. We transitioned out of elementary from Chromebooks to iPads in the 22-23 school year, which is why you'll see 2 purchases set into there, because the amount of iPads that we were replacing K, and at the time we were 1-to-1 in kindergarten because we were coming out of the pandemic, and we made sure that we had the number of devices. We are not recommending making any more Chromebook purchases in the 25-26 school year, so you will not see that for students. There may be a purchase for devices for staff that just are on outdated devices that need to be updated. So your next purchase will most likely come to you in the fall for devices that in the FY27 budget, which means we would have gone almost 2 years since the last time we've made Chromebook purchases. And with that, I'm available for any questions, comments, or feedback that you might have.
I do have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Was it me? Okay. So this year, my son was out for a week with flu A, and the only way that I kind of kept him on track was him doing a lot of work on his Chromebook that he had at home. So with the CART model for middle school, what would that look like for those sort of unexpected extended?
So generally speaking, students would not take devices home. However, in limited, we are proposing giving the principal the ability to allow for one-offs where it might be, in your case. With that being said, there has to be a balance there because we have to make sure that we still have enough within the school to be able to do that. So it would be probably limited circumstances is sort of what we're flushing out, although we're still working through that model.
Couldn't they send hard copies home?
Depending on the course, yes. In elementary, that's much easier, but when middle school, if you have math, English, science, social studies, art, physical education, and CTE, not all of those courses may have hard copies. It just depends on the course grade level, but elementary, yes.
So I think we have software on our computers to try to keep students engaged in what they're supposed to be doing and not able to scroll or go into other browsers. I don't know if it's a line item, and I know it's not on the sheet 1 that I have here in front of me. Do we have the cost of that software? Can we get that?
We can get that for you. I feel like it's coming up for renewal again here. It's GoGuardian is part of it, and it comes with Pear Deck as a combination. It is a price, I believe, per student, and so we'll have to look at what that looks like. I don't know, Ms. Beachley, if we're going to save funding. So how digital licenses work typically, I'll give you an example. We purchased Kami. Once the student actually signs on, that's a license. So even though you're reducing devices, in theory, every student's still going to sign on because I may have a device in my science class or my math class. And so I have to look at that because it's still based on the number of students. And we still would have, in theory, all of our students touching a device at some point, on a daily or weekly basis.
Okay, I know like with 365, so Microsoft 365, you can, have one device and 2 different people log in. So does each student have like their own login to the computer is what you're saying?
Yes.
Is
And
there any
the reason
reason we
for
would keep that, or
they keep all their devices, so you keep all your files that follow you. So in that scenario, if I go from math to English to my resource period, when I sign on, I am actually accessing my cloud-based documents. And so that's partially part of the Google environment. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I think we're just going to have to look at it a little more carefully.
I have presentations from elementary school still on my Google Drive. And I think that's partially important, especially with having that privacy of, if you're writing into a file, you're the only person writing into this file. Where if someone else writes into the file, yeah, I think keeping them separate, at least as we have it now, has worked. I've shared Chromebooks with other people because, let's just say they forgot their Chromebook one day. They can log in on a separate profile under my Chromebook, and they log in a separate page entirely.
I have a question maybe for Nora to help me out here. In high school, how many students have their own computers that they use? Do we have any students that prefer to use their own?
A lot of people prefer to, but the policy as it is right now says you're not allowed to bring any personal devices within schools. So you're not allowed to bring your own
But
computer.
for home, though, I mean, you could probably just access your
In
work
my
at-
specific scenario, yes.
Yeah, and I would imagine probably a lot of students that are in that same category of college probably use their devices at home.
I would say that, but I've had students, especially this year, through being more involved at the community college, reach out to me and ask to have, we use the D2L learning management system at HCC, having that, being able to access certain aspects through your Chromebook. Sometimes they can't get to a certain page that they need to get to for their course, and they don't have a personal computer. So the only other option is to go to the Learning Support Center at HCC and take out a MacBook for an hour-by-hour basis.
So for me, and I thank Mrs. Beachley for sending this information over to me. Some of the most really research that was eye-opening, and no pun intended. It talked about the elongating the eye for people that are on devices, screens, that it actually elongates the eye. And these are things that we're now finding out after long periods of time. And I'm thinking that probably for me, I don't want my elementary students having those issues, and maybe not anybody to have the issues, but I think limiting that to no devices and getting back to more of the books and the papers and getting back to the basics so that we can get our students, reading on grade level, and maybe introducing that Chromebook maybe in middle school. And then, of course, I'm thinking high school probably does have a more of a need for it. But I think we have to look at the health issues along with the physical and mental things that are going on with these books. And I remember when we first when we first got these devices, that we had a program that actually picked up keywords in our schools. And so I think one of them was, the word was bomb. And that I see a couple people shaking their head, remember that, because we were concerned about students just kind of looking certain things up. And we wanted to be able to know what they were looking at or what was coming up. Do we still do that? And can we have control of that? Or is that program's
Yes.
no longer?
You still have access as the teacher. I probably should have went a little deeper with my response to Ms. Beachley's question. So our teachers have the ability to see what students are doing on their Chromebooks. I can lock it. I can.
This was more of an outside group that looked at that because they were concerned with security issues, and I don't think it was just with in-house, but I think there was a program that we used. Does anyone remember that?
There
April,
was
would you
used to be a
remember that?
program called Sentinel or something along
Beth
those
would know.
lines. But yeah, I'm going to
It's coming
probably
up.
call the technology department up to help assist.
I think it predates my time, but the software was Social Sentinel.
Social Sentinel, that's it,
would, in theory, you would set a GPS fence around the school location.
That's it.
And it would pick up keywords from any device inside that circle. This predates my time, but my understanding was it went away fairly quickly because it was not effective, did not pick up keywords or picked up things that were not really, that you would not say met the threshold that should have been reported?
Today, we have a program called Securely, which is on all student Chromebooks, and it's effective if they're at school or they're at home. And so that prohibits them from going to certain websites, anything considered inappropriate. And we subscribe to a service which dictates what's inappropriate. As far as particular words, though, we are not monitoring for that because you have to, it's two sides to the coin. One is if a student on a Saturday at 8 p.m. types in the word suicide, and that creates an alert. Who's going to see the alert? Who's going to do something about it? So we have to make decisions of, do we want to go down that road? We could, or we could not. We do not have that in place currently.
So I guess my thought is, the cost that would be added to these Chromebooks or, that we have, I mean, is that would eliminate some of that, that cost. Do we have a number that we spend on those type of things?
Well, you'd
For
have
like
to
elementary?
Yeah, you'd have to look. I mean, as you know from CNI, every purchase we make a decision: hard copy,
Yeah.
or digital, right? And so the challenge, Mr. Gesford, you run into with elementary is there is. Under the current model, you'd put our students at a great disadvantage not to be able to have access to some of the digital resources for math and literacy as they prepare for not just their state assessments, local assessments, being able to get quick reading levels, MTSS plans, all the things that I know you and I have talked about and other members of CNI. That's why what we did was we tried to limit it. And I know, we were able to knock, I think, 700,000 off the total expenses of Chromebooks by going 2-to-1 in elementary. But anything below that now would not give you enough to test all students in the grade levels at one time. And that would potentially cause additional issues with testing. We don't get to create the state windows for assessments. And just for example, our fifth graders are required to take a math assessment that's 4 sessions long, an ELA session that's at least 3 sessions long, a science MISA assessment. And so I just share all that to say, to put a student on a device for the first time in a state assessment and say, here, learn how to use the online calculator. I agree with you 100%. Balance is key. And so a 10-to-1 ratio, let's say where that ends up in elementary and the average class size is 20, 21, there's no way I'm designing a lesson that everybody's on it at the same time anyway. So I have to naturally think about what that looks like as I'm setting up my learning stations, as I'm setting up my lessons. So I think there are a couple ways to get there. I do think we're going to see some cost reduction as we move forward with online curriculum purchases. So when the math contract comes up for renewal, certainly don't need as many licenses, to the point that I was trying to make earlier. I just can't promise it's going to be with the Go Guardian at this point. But I think as we renew science, as we renew social studies, remember, some of them are 2-3 years out because we stagger so the bill doesn't hit us all at once. I do think there will be additional savings in the future, just not yet. Some of that, though, might have to be offset by buying hard copy materials as opposed to buying the digital resource that we're currently using. So I think it'll be a year-to-year thing as we look out in future years as we update our 10-year plan on instructional materials.
But even with the digital, don't you have to have the hard copy too before they allow you to purchase the digital?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the companies are packaging things that, perfect example, I think APE Government is the latest purchase. It was actually cheaper to purchase the hard copy with the electronic resource than getting the hard copy by itself. And they want you because they know that you have to go and then renew that in a couple of years, whereas the hard copy might. So that's just vendors, packaging things to make it more economical, but to then also get you using the resources.
So I'm thinking that I'm hearing across the nation where school systems are going away from screens more and more. They're seeing the benefits for that. They're seeing their students' testing going up because of that. And so I'm thinking probably in the future that's probably one of those programs that we try out and it didn't work out, and it's going to be better later down the road. And I want to give for me, I want to make sure that our teachers, our students have all the tools to be successful. But I'm looking at, that assessment, and then we know that we've said that that's a ridiculous assessment, which we all agree on that. But I would really like to see our students be more successful. And, we've already tried to give them these tools, and they're not more successful in the overall picture. So I'm trying to think, if this is the outcome, maybe we need to go a different direction.
Well, I think it was a big step if this is the first step of where we go that, right now, every third, fourth, and fifth grader is sitting with a device, every second grader. And beginning next year, they will not. And I think that's a pretty big step. We'd probably be going back, 2012, 13, since that's been the case in our county when we went one-to-one, I believe 2013-ish, 14-ish, somewhere around there. So it's definitely a large step, but I do think it's a year-to-year conversation as we look at our budget, as we look at data, student achievement data, and curriculum resources, and continue that conversation.
Can I just comment that we've made a couple references to material, and if anyone's curious what we're talking about, you can look up Closed Screens Open Minds. It's an organization who's done a lot of research, extensive research on the negative and positive repercussions of using technology. I have a couple, one more thing, and then I have a question. One of the things they talk about is these big tech executives who are developing a lot of this ed tech and these devices are not sending their own kids to schools that use devices. And that personally terrifies me. You're creating it, but you won't let your own kids use it, and here we are using it. So I'm excited about the future balance. I would say I would like to see more reduction in the use of technology. And then I do have a question. One of the things that they mentioned in one of the seminars I listened to from Closed Screens Open Minds is that kids and adults even, we're very good at figuring out workarounds. It's kind of why I was against the pouches for the cell phones. But they mentioned these softwares that we're paying lots of money for aren't necessarily working. I have heard from a teacher that the GoGuardian, they've seen students exiting out of browsers and then gone back to their device and they can't find what the student was looking at. So if those situations are occurring, who should we reach out to, and how can we make sure that those are effective while we're still using these devices?
Absolutely. Students have figured out ways around some of our best systems since long before there was technology. So I'm not going to sit here and say anything's 100%. We do have multiple layers. You have the filtering that Mr. Allen was talking about, and then you have the software at the teacher level. If we think a student is abusing that, then it's a conversation with the student following our progressive discipline. If we don't think the software is working correctly, then it's a work ticket, and our technology team will get on it to see, hey, is something here. Sometimes we are blocking individual sites. We're adding that to like a block it, so that, hey, we found a new game that kids are going to. When we see it being a large issue, how do we actually block that site individually outside of our system? So we are constantly responding, because what we block today, there will be something new 3 days later that's coming. Truthfully, my own kids help with some of that, just because I get a sense of what they're doing and what they're using. But we also have teachers who are really good at sharing some of that information as well.
Very good. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we'll move on to our final topic of the day here, the vape detectors.
So as we transition, yes, this is the final topic of this work session, and staff has provided a presentation that will highlight the overall impact of our pilot vape detector program at North High and Boonesboro High Schools. I believe Mr. Prue will be leading this conversation, presentation, and discussion later by the board. So team members, thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Savine, members of the board. I'm pleased to have with me, I'll kind of run down the table, I think faces you know, Mr. Tom Kelly and Mr. Steve Ganley from our Safety and Security Office, Dr. Chilcutt and Dr. Kohanek, of course, principals, North Hagerstown High School and Boonesboro High School. It was about a year ago, I think we had a conversation at a work session, might have been during a budget work session on vape detection, and whether we had tried any vape detectors, maybe running a pilot. So we've been doing that over the course of this year, and we wanted to share some information with you to this point. And also, we have Mr. Bill Baker from our Safety and Security Office here in the bullpen in case Bill's been leading this process a little bit with our vendors, going through a lot of the setup. So in the event we need a reliever, we've got Bill at the ready. Looking at the purpose of our evaluation, we wanted to test vape detectors at 2 different high schools. We specifically wanted to look at one that had security assistance and one that did not, to see what the impact would be on our various staffing models. Of course, North Hagerstown High School has the security assistance, and Boonesboro High School does not. That's part of assessing the operational impact on school staffing. What's going to happen when the detector goes off? How are we going to respond? What kind of a load is that on our folks in our schools? We wanted to evaluate vendors' customer service and tech support. We looked at a couple of different models, different manufacturers. We tested one in particular, based, I believe, on their ability to just say, yeah, you want to run a test, here's the devices. So we got off the hook a little bit there on purchase of devices. And then what's the environmental impact on school students and staff? What's going to happen as we go through this? And as what you'll see in the presentation is we've ratcheted things up here towards the spring of the year to see what's going to happen differently if we operate the program differently. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ganley.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to bring you the update to our pilot program. Setting up a pilot, it gave us 2 schools to work with, so we weren't overwhelmed. It was a new program to us, and we didn't want to go to a lot of areas where we would have to make changes. So sticking with 2 schools gave us the opportunity to keep it small and work with our end users, the principals, and to work with the vendors. We feel like the vendors were easy to work with, and we got a lot of input from the principals. So we think the 2-school program, whether we take it to another level of testing or not, this is a good balance for us. The schools that we utilized, again, Boonesboro and North Hagerstown High School, we did 2 sets of bathrooms. We did a boys' bathroom and girls' bathroom in one area, and a boys' bathroom and girls' bathroom in a second area. So there are 4 detectors in both schools. The cost for the program to set up, just for the pilot, was about $9,500 per school. That was to set the program up, run the cabling, put the software in place, and to fulfill everything that the vendor required for the initial piloting of the program.
Thank you. As a team, we rolled out the pilot with the aspect of working with our partners in our schools. The first approach was the first rollout was a silent alert process. That gave us the opportunity to set the devices up initially in a silent alert. With our partnership in our schools with our administrators, they received alert notifications on their phones, emails, or other devices to indicate what was going on in the schools. That gave us the opportunity to review the software, if not the devices, fine-tune it, work with them based on comments or what they are seeing exhibiting. It also gave us the opportunity for them to form a database on peaks and flows in the bathroom as well and how they were going to respond. Next slide. We then rolled out actual testing in our devices at the locations. We performed a control test in each of the bathrooms utilizing a vape device. What we found through monitoring was the immediate alert of when the device was activated in the bathroom and how that was related to having a admin staff on scene with us and that immediate response to them as well. It also gave us the opportunity here from a central office to assess what configurations we were looking at. Through that testing process in the bathroom environment, we noticed that there was approximately a 60 to a 90-second delay from once the vape was introduced into the bathroom in order for the device to cycle through and detect it and then provide an alert. Again, 60 to 90 seconds. And again, notification, once it was alerted, was immediate at that point in time to the staff.
As Tom said, there was a 60 to 90-second delay. That was a concern that we have. That is the default for the device, so it is working properly. So the atmospheric change takes that long. So if someone goes into vape, it could be 60 to 90 seconds before the chemical change reaches the device and activates. And again, the activation is immediate, but that 60 to 90 seconds, what we noticed at times when the alert came out, you would respond to an empty bathroom. The other thing we have to be careful about is if we respond and there are people in the bathroom, are they the people that are vaping? So this being the first part of our pilot, we feel like we need to work with our legal team and find out what some of the avenues we have to put in place for our standard operating procedures. The other issue that we noticed, not only does it detect the change in the atmosphere, it can also detect the change in people. So if I think it was set on 5 or 6, when it reached that number, it would set an alert to the administration. We had administrators responding to the bathrooms that were empty. So the detection and the response, there is the delay that offers a concern to us.
The next phase of our rollout was the audible alert process. We were able to go through the process and set each device up so it then provides an audible alert in the bathroom once the vape is detected, essentially a siren, you could say. It also provides the opportunity to flash lights as well before it recycles and goes through a resting period. We rolled that out in August of this year. We're currently still reviewing the impact of that data with our administration partners and our schools. So that's still an ongoing process as we move through this pilot program. April, I apologize, what did I say? August, April. As with any device, vape detectors will require period setting reviews. That may very well be affected by firmware updates. We got to go back individually, perhaps review how those settings are looking based on the firmware updates, and even perhaps at times going back and providing additional testing in the buildings as well. With that also being said, at this point, we'll turn it over to our partners, Dr. Chilcutt and Dr. Kahanick.
Hello, everybody. We were a late add. Ours were installed in November 10th of last year. What we've seen is we had very few hits. I think we had maybe 13 hits over that time for an actual vape. What we had was a huge uptick. Every transition, you would get the hit for, all 4 bathrooms would have multiple overcrowding in there. We had, I think I agree with what Steve said. It's been a matter of kind of versioning and we adjust and we learn and we keep adjusting how we respond. Early April, we had a software update. Now we are getting more vape hits. I don't know why. I'm not the technology guy, just telling you what we had. So, and we will get to the bathroom. I'm kind of reiterate everything Steve said. We'll get to the bathrooms, either admin or our security folks, and there's no one in there. To piggyback on the legality piece, we've even looked at video and say, okay, well, these 4 kids came out. I mean, I don't know that that's enough to say, well, we think these kids, it's just hard to tell. I'm not here to say that it's not a worthwhile pursuit. What I'm here to say is I believe we need to continue to learn and do more. Because it's one of the nightmare scenario for a principal is that kids would be in there with something they shouldn't have. I think that's probably about it.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Okay. We've had the vape in for about a year now, and the detections were quite significant right out of the gate. Boonesboro High School does not have many bathrooms. They only have a few, so there were 2 down in the lot. So half of our bathrooms were put under vape detection. When the silent alarms were there, and we were trying to push through a standard operating procedure for that, they were quite numerous. What it did show to me as a principal is that vaping is real. It's a concern, and the students in the Maryland Culture Survey at our schools, when they said they need assistance with this, they're on point. They are exposed to it. It does exist. It is a problem. And the national averages on this are 7.8% of students are regularly vaping. So when you look at that, I believe we've identified a problem that's also just not a community problem. It's nationwide. So I do think it's confirmed that the students' concerns are real and valid. That's for sure. At Boonesboro High School, we do have staff that stand in the restrooms between periods. We have 2 staff, so they're paired up as a comfortable team. And so we don't see much vape detection going off during the period transitions when staff are present. When we see it is when the bathrooms, of course, are empty, and the students have got onto that. And they know when it is and when it's not. So we had a lot more vape detections. I would say we averaged over 50 vape detections a day on the 4 detectors before we put the audible alert on. In April, they came and we did an audible alert. I would say we saw about a 75% reduction in vape detection because the alarm goes off. Now, in fairness to the delay, yes, there's times we've got there where there's nobody there. But in the same breath, I know the students scurry pretty quickly when that thing goes off, whether they're innocent or not innocent, I don't know, but they definitely don't want to be a part of it. We did struggle with knowing that the delay and the empty piece that we do not want to falsely accuse. So we just took an initiative. We sent a parent letter to all of our parents a few weeks ago, letting them know that these detectors were active. The alarm would go off. I didn't want to have students panicking or be alerted that there may be something more concerning than just vape. So we did send that to the parents, and we notified all parents that if their students were found in the bathroom when the detector went off, they would receive a phone notification. And our point was just to bring the parent into the circle and try and help us not just be consequential, but also informed, because we believe that this is a problem that needs to be addressed collectively, not just from the school system, but from the home. And we told parents that as a student, for example, were to be more multiply identified, like if we start seeing patterns with their child, we would be requesting conference with those parents. At this point, we haven't got that. We've only had a student who's maybe, I think, 3 times is the most repeat we've seen so far. But we do believe that when a student starts showing a pattern, that we want to have that parent conference, offer our student assistance program, and try and get them clean. I have had students personally thank me for turning the audible alert on. They saw that as a game changer, and they said it makes them feel a lot better in the bathroom, knowing that people aren't just going in there to hang out and try and do it. Secondly, I would say that the high occupancy notification has been extremely helpful to me. We have gone in there where students are doing everything. Now, we have not had to have an altercation, thankfully, that we walked in on, but they were doing things such as raps and other things in there because it's what kids do. And we were able to make sure that nothing went or got out of hand, because that's an area that's not surveyed. It's not under camera. So a high population in that can be a dangerous situation. And knowing that that happens pretty quickly and we get notified within 30 to 60 seconds as that it's accumulating, I believe is a great thing. Thank you.
I think as we move into the last slide, one of the things that we've talked about as a team is that I think you heard Mike, 75% reduction since the audible alerts have gone on. We're not naive. There's only 2 bathrooms in the building that have the detectors. So while you've got a 75% reduction, we also believe that the students who are vaping have probably just moved to their location. They found the bathroom that doesn't have the vape detector. They found another, hallway or a corner to take a hit. So we want to be open about that. And I say that to sort of get us to this next slide. I personally last week sat down with every floor plan. I counted every restroom at high schools across the system. This includes the technical high school. It includes BISFA. It includes the Innovative Learning Center. I mean, this is all of any building where we have high school students, with the exception of Marshall Street and the Job Development Center, I should say. Based on that, we have 143 student restrooms. A couple of caveats to the device. They are ideally in a situation where that device is covering 150 square feet or less. So you think about that, you're talking about a space that's roughly 12 by 12. A group restroom often is larger than that, but I think if we were, for the purposes of this review, I assume still only one detector in a bathroom, probably buried a little bit deeper. They're not going to vape right in the doorway. They're going to vape a little bit deeper in, so we can do that. They're also affected by HVAC supply and return because you're dissipating that vape. So you got to watch that location placement. So there are inherently issues just with the detection from that perspective. I did also look at locker rooms as another potential spot that we probably should consider. With the assessment that based on the size of our locker rooms, probably 4 to 6 team rooms in various different spots within our high school locker rooms, that's an additional 93 detectors just spitballing at devices. We talked earlier in the presentation about $1,800 per device. So for just the restrooms across the county, you're talking a $257,000 investment in purchase of devices for the restrooms, another $167,000 for purchase of devices for your locker rooms. Installation costs based on $550 per device is about $130,000 for all of those devices for an all-in cost at high schools of $555,000. Each device then moving forward has an annual support cost of $145. That does include a warranty against normal wear and tear defect. All of a sudden the device stops working, the vendor would replace it. If the device is vandalized or damaged, of course, we've got to replace it at our own cost. That gives us an annual ongoing cost moving forward of $34,000. The board does have the Juul settlement funds that are currently in a restricted fund that we are holding. You currently have $448,000 in that Juul fund. So we would have to allocate, if you wanted to do at this scale, restrooms and locker rooms, we would have to allocate additional dollars to the install and then additional ongoing support dollars to maintain those devices. If the board wanted to say, all right, let's do restrooms, let's just say we're going to do restrooms, you could reduce that cost and probably have enough remaining, about $110,000, $115,000 remaining to pay for your ongoing support, let's say for the first 5 years. That gives you at least a window. Are we seeing a reduction? Is it working? Can we gauge in some way that our students are vaping less than they were, let's say, when the detectors first went into play? So that's an option. And another option that we have portrayed as a team is an option of doing, let's say, half the bathrooms in a school where you set up essentially safe bathrooms for students that want to go to the restroom. They don't want to be involved or near vape. You can pretty much be sure those restrooms would be clear. That also gives you an opportunity to, as Dr. Koenig mentioned, they're having staff outside in teams of 2 outside restrooms during class exchanges. That gives you an opportunity to focus your manpower to, let's say, the restrooms that are not detected and let your detector be your manpower in the places where you have that device. So we share all that, and the team is happy to answer any questions that you have for us on this pilot.
Jeff, the annual support on that 145, is that for all devices or individual? I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's per device.
Per device. Okay, so that would be an additional cost if we didn't reduce the locker rooms, is what you were saying, correct? Okay. To the principals, do you think that locker rooms are important for that? Do you think that we're seeing that that's a location that vaping may be occurring, or a place where they would like, okay, there's no vaping devices in there, let's go there now?
Speaking for myself, I don't think that's a high frequency area because there's a high traffic there. So it tends to be more moderate traffic where they can find privacy. But if there is stalls in the bathrooms, chances are if we do believe you're pushing. Like, so in other words, when we only had 4 bathrooms, we do believe they are pushing towards the locker room stalls. We know they're pushing towards our gym bathroom stalls. It's the stalls is where they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing it in broad open areas. So broad open spaces with lots of students, that's not what I believe is a heavy problem. I'm sure you have a couple students trying to show off that way, but that's not the pervasive problem. The
Right.
pervasive problem is anywhere there's a stall. So do I think they're a problem for us right now? I don't believe they're a high frequency problem because we don't change that much for gym class anymore. But I think, could they become them as you identify? You got to be careful how you identify because it will push the students who vape towards that.
I'd agree. It could happen, really could be anywhere. It's so quick. It's not like in the old days with, lighter and all that, But we've done sort of a similar thing where we put them in an area where, I don't want to say safe zone like we were talking about, but we put them in there. If you know North High, it's in the English and English area downstairs, and then upstairs is on that corner. So it's the northwest corner of the building. And then we can more easily deploy into like the media center and then the gym lobby. Our gym is, our locker rooms are pretty much locked down. We have PE teachers in an office right there, you know what I mean? So it could happen anywhere. I mean, but I don't think locker, my opinion, for us, I don't think it's a major area.
So those bathrooms that you covered during this pilot program, we had more bathrooms, I guess, in the schools. I mean, they just did 2. Do you think that they found out that those 2 were the ones that had it, and so they went to the other one, so those numbers might be a little, fudged, maybe not true? You're saying yes?
I think they knew.
Okay.
I think if there was.
Jeff, can you give him the microphone? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That way the public can hear. We
thought
can
it was
hear you,
just
but.
us talking. I think that, I think where the poor information came from, we got 13 hits on those 4 bathrooms that were in that, and we're thinking, well, they're working, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to, we might have teachers outside, but we don't necessarily have security there all the time. And so by that media center and the gym were the 2 big ones where we are all the time. And it's also just closer to the main part. So your question was, do you think they found out? I think so. I think they know.
So what I'm saying is, those numbers that you gave us, the data on that probably is not a true data because they probably found out and then they shifted to the other bathrooms and maybe only gave us a little bit of a picture of what it looked like.
Yeah, but in those other bathrooms, we're there to monitor them better, and especially in transitions.
Oh, so you had somebody there.
We had people, but that's where admin and security folks would be in those bathrooms. Now, they were still at the other bathrooms, but it was,
Right.
honestly, we thought, okay, this is not the high priority area, so we could deploy into those areas.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm really thinking that 60 to 90 seconds is just too long. I mean, it just doesn't give you. I mean, that's, to me, that's a lifetime. If you're going to go in there and smoke, and then the time that goes off, and then you have to shuffle people down there, it's just not going to be feasible for that. So it's just kind of a waste for me. But yeah, I mean, other than the fact that, I know that it's grant funded. And we have that money coming in. I hate spending more money on something that we're going to have reoccurring expense, but I know we do have an issue with this, so I'm not sure if it's something that we look at more educational devices, or how we roll that out. But I mean, we had that with cigarettes, and they rolled that out and did some more education part of that. So
I think that's one of the intriguing things about what Boonesboro's done is, at least through the tests, taking the opportunity to make parents aware that their child may be vaping. We joked, hey, if Gary Willow gets caught in the restroom 4 times this week, the likelihood is Gary Willow's vaping. So it lends itself to that kind of a perspective to hopefully bring the parents together with us to find some resources. We can also engage other partners, whether it's through Meritus or the health department, on some educational opportunities. Based on the comments, I think, from our principals, if we wanted to do restrooms, you have the funds to do that. You'd have the funds to also support your ongoing recurring costs for a number of years before we need to make a final general fund budget decision to say, yeah, we're going with this. And the devices have about a 10-year life. So somewhere probably just like any other electronic device, just like the Mist devices that provide our wireless access throughout our buildings, they wear out. So your home smoke detector in your home, typically wears out and should be replaced, let's say, every 10 years. So these are very similar to that, and probably because you're talking about such a large number, by year 8, we want to be budgeting for replacements so we can start replacing devices that will begin to fail and to keep that cycle alive and without it having to hit all at one time.
Great.
I know that South has digital hall passes. Do you have digital hall passes at North? You have them at Boonesboro too?
We use e-hall pass. It's not, we use e-hall pass and then like a lanyard as well. Yeah, so we know.
You can tell who went to the bathroom.
We can tell who's gone, left the room and supposedly gone to the bathroom. We don't necessarily know which one they're in, but if you're in, the building. So if you're up in that corner in the math where the window is, and you're in 217, you should go to that closest bathroom.
Right.
So, and we also, if we find a student who's, going to the gym to the bathroom, we're going to have a conversation, because then they're out of area. And then sometimes that conversation leads to, well, do you mind emptying your pockets? So the e-hall pass was a great investment, and I think that's school level purchase. So that was a good, and I think most high schools now have it. So yeah, to answer your question.
But it seems like it would be easier to tell who did the 60 to 90 seconds if you have a digital hall pass. Does that make sense?
Yes, but like I say, we don't necessarily know that they went to that bathroom unless we see that they were not in that
But if
bathroom.
they're supposed to go
We-
in the area.
Yeah.
Mike, you were going to say something?
I'm just saying, most bathroom doorways, the entrance points are under camera surveillance. So we have worked with Bill Backner, and there is an option to kind of do like a clip before and after when that alarm goes off. So it just kind of records who went in and who exited within that proximity. The problem is the groups. Very rarely is, we don't have many bathrooms, so very rarely is it just an isolated student or two. It's usually a group. And, as a parent, everybody here's been parents, falsely accusing a parent or child is something that we gotta be very careful about doing.
But both of you believe since the vaping units have been installed that there's less vaping.
I believe there's less vaping in those locations. I'm not sure we're making an impact on the overall vaping.
So that kind of
But-
leads me into my question there. I don't necessarily hear you guys saying yay or nay to purchasing these. I appreciate the neutrality. I personally would like to know directly, just be blunt, if you guys were in control of this portion of the budget, would you think we'd be foolish if we bought it?
You can go first.
You're not going to insult us,
Whatever you want to do, no.
Yeah.
I think you could look at it a couple of different ways. And I don't want to be hyperbolic. I have a former colleague is now in Montgomery County. They're not just smoking tobacco in Montgomery County. That's coming. That's going to happen at some point. And as a principal, and I'm sure you would agree, that is the nightmare scenario. So if you look at it from that standpoint, 1.5 million would probably be worth it, right?
Right.
Now, I think I don't know, if I'm going to put on a fiscal hat, I would say, I don't know that we know enough yet from this pilot to say we want to go broad with it. I would say, and I'm not going to be there next year, but I think that the most prudent step forward it's just me, would be to, work out any bugs we might have and do that. And I know we're not talking about security folks, but I mean, human capital is always better than a little pod on the ceiling. I think where we've made a lot of headway is the relationships that, and our security folks aren't just like, they're not thugs walking around scaring kids. They're building relationships every day. And we end up finding, one will tell us, hey, Kahanic has one, and then we'll go, kids will tell, you know what I mean? They'll tell on each other. So I know I'm going off your question here, but I mean, you get into those things. I'm not even sure I answered your question. I'm sorry.
I kind of read into it a little bit.
I think the next step for this, my opinion, if I was writing the check, would be to be a little more prudent and take this pilot to the next step. And then, okay, what have we learned from here, and then go from that.
I was almost thinking you're just saying not even necessarily take it to the next step, but kind of just wait and see if there's more technology that comes out. It's not, I don't know if there's a time limit on when we have to spend those funds, but if, if maybe we waited a year or two for technology to improve, that's kind of what I'm hearing. Does that make sense, or?
It does, and it does continue to improve. And it's amazing when you get on the website for these, because these also backlog to a website, so we can track trends for 30 days. You can see when it's most prevalent, when students are most doing it. I mean, I can't point blank answer your question, but I know that there's a conversation point we haven't discussed, which is middle school too, and the students, I think, are starting to use long before they get to me. And if we can get them on the front end, I think it's a lot easier to get them off and discourage it. I do think that there's a lot of viability to having a safe place for kids. And I mean, I hate to say that with reservation because I'm not trying to condone it. We have bathrooms where we're pushing students to vape, but in the same breath, having students who do not want to be around that, inhale the secondhand piece of that, and be in those rooms, providing them that safe space to know that they have a good place is something worth looking into and worth talking about.
One thing that came up with us in our, we're community schools, so we have focus groups, kids, parents, teachers. One thing that came up was, and I think Mike touched on it, was the need for education for the kids. And that's revenue neutral. That doesn't cost a dime. That just takes our time. Just how are we going to build this in and teach them, especially with middle school. I feel like by the time they get to us, it's already a habit that it's a need they have then because they've been doing it, And I mean, that's another community thing is we can take them from kids, we can get a consequence, and they can go down the street and they can buy them, and they're back the next day with another. They used to be like $100. Now I think, I've never bought one, but I mean, they're much cheaper. So we take them, kids go get them, they bring them back in, so.
Do you know if
Tom's bought a few.
But the bottom line is the unintended but good result was kids know which bathrooms are being detected, so the kids who don't want to use a bathroom where there's vaping now have a place to go to the bathroom.
Have a safe place. It's not a silver bullet for sure. It's definitely not a silver bullet, but it does have value added. How much value added? I'm not sure if it equals that amount, but it has value added.
Are there any other ideas or ways that we could utilize this money?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. And truthfully, I think I'd want to pull a team together to say, all right, we have this money. Let's get a plan together, and we could work with the health department, Meritus, our own internal teams, counseling, student services, to think about how we can utilize this funding, this vital funding we have, which is about vape reduction for kids, and what's the right and appropriate age level. To their point, they are starting in middle school, and so heading it off before it starts is the number one key. So, I think I agree in a wait and see approach a bit. Let us do some more work on this pilot. Let's figure some things out. Let's work with council on what would this look like in terms of discipline matrix. What would this look like in terms of searching students for vapes when a detector goes off. Let's work through a lot of those things. We can continue to report back to the board. In the meantime, we can also convene some folks to think about what other options we have to use these funds in the best way to see vape reduction amongst our kids.
Mr. Prue, does the health department offer any kind of programming, or do they have anything that they could hand out for parents, for kids to get off the vape?
I would think they have something, but off the top of my head, I do not know.
Okay.
It just so happens that I did a training with some foster care parents, and they do have material, and they have a lot of good information on what's going into some of these vapes, different examples of them, and even if you brought them into the school, and I don't know if they'd be willing to do that or not. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't, but.
We'll make the ask.
I think for me personally, I like the idea of bringing back the DARE program, where we are educating our children at a younger age of what the consequences are for just even trying something once. So that's just something that I would personally like to see.
I just have one final question. Do you know if this detects marijuana? These machines?
It does.
They do?
Have there been specific reports of certain things that have been sending out, like false flags? Like, for example, something I can think of is like aerosols. If you're using aerosol cologne, aerosol deodorant, would something like that set off a false alarm with the atmospheric detection? And also, have there been examples of vandalization? Because as we touched on a little bit, it would not be covered in the warranty, and within the warranty, and then that would just be an additional cost on top of the cost of installing them in the first place.
So these sensors, they gauge the air quality. So aerosol cans give off a different footprint than a vape or THC or any other air molecules. So it'll detect the masking. That's called masking. So it'll detect it and send an alarm. Yep.
Talk about air quality in the bathroom. Interesting. Sorry.
President Evans, if I may, especially with our principals here, and appreciate your compassion and your willingness to really work to find a solution for our students, because I think this is without a doubt a real issue. And as was said earlier, this is not unique to our community. This is a national issue, but appreciate your willingness to be innovative. Recognizing that we've had a pilot, the intention of a pilot is to learn something. So while you have the board here, I'll give you some time to think about this, but would like for you to share your recommendation in terms of, would you like for this to remain for another year? So maybe we can work with a team to refine it in these two schools, perhaps expand it just in the schools to, as you further your communications and education with the students as well as parents. I just offer that for reflective discussion because I think the only way that we're going to move forward with addressing this problem is being proactive and engaging with a pilot such as this to gather information and refine it based on how we're informed. So I just throw that out for you to consider. I know board members have other questions, but I want you to kind of reflect on that, and if you feel so compelled, we welcome your feedback there, perspective.
Kind of to piggyback on that, I wanted to say that I like the idea of the educational piece that doesn't cost us money, right? That we can either partner with or come up with the material. Recently, my mom sent me a news article, and a 23-year-old girl was given like 12 or 18 months to live, and it was because of vaping. So this is a real issue, and it's terrifying. But I did want to comment, and I apologize if we went over this when I stepped out, but I would like to see the next step of a pilot, meaning that like we do it in every bathroom in one high school, or maybe both, to see, because right now we have assumptions that these kids are vaping, that were vaping, and the one are now going to another one. So I feel like if we're going to continue to pilot it, why wouldn't we just do every bathroom or every locker in one high school just to see what does that do? Or yeah, in a middle school.
She said pick one middle school to add to the mix as well.
I think if you're going on that model, you're going on a model then to take on vaping head on collectively. And I did read that article. She's from the UK. It was a terrible article. But you're talking about taking it on collectively to try and reduce vaping collectively across the school, community, and environment and culture. So I do think education is going to have to be a huge piece on that. I would also stress that staffing is a piece with this. His school does have the safety security officers. We do not. So when we had the 50 plus, there's many times it went unanswered. We just couldn't get there in time. And by the time we get there, we don't have time to go back in day to sit there and review film all day with just 2 assistant principals. So staffing becomes a conversation point. I think there's validity in taking a comprehensive approach and wanting to see how that would work and then see where they would go. But I think you got to think, and then the standard operating procedure, to Mr. Evans, to your point about technology changing, when we first perused this, and I want to thank you guys for taking this, because I remember having the conversation with Mr. Burkett in my office and saying that this is like something that's really near and dear to me, because it's definitely serious and it's real. It's a big problem. When we looked at those models back then, the models that we talked to was one out of Chambersburg Hospital, which they said, or Chambersburg, I'm sorry, high school, in which they said that when they caught the student, they just wanted it for the metal detection. And then, of course, they would then search the student if they had the metal on them because the vape had metal in them. Well, now the vapes don't have metal. So just in that short period of time of installation, we went from something that was a good standard operating procedure to one that becomes even more challenging, because the wand would be great. Yeah, that was great. I see something in your left pocket, show me it. So I do think a standard operating procedure in this is really key. And that means everything from contacting parents to an educational platform to after school, for example, or consequences in that way.
Do you think the Audible worked better, made more of an impact?
That one I'm not going to dispute. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I didn't realize they were silent, but
Yeah, it made a big difference.
Well, very good, everyone. We appreciate your time, and I know it's been a long day, but certainly some great discussion. So if no one else has anything for the good of the order, we'll adjourn this meeting and take a 15-minute break before we go into closed session. Maybe 10.
Thanks.